It's more of a 10, 1 to 10.
It's 6:09 p.m. Monday. I'm here after school setting up for an acid-based lab, which we're gonna do on Wednesday and Thursday. I also have my second formal evaluation on Wednesday, and I think I mentioned this last week that I didn't know who my appraiser was, and then I had just some dates that were given to me that I could select from, so I selected Wednesday because we're starting the acid-based unit on that particular day. We're starting off with a lab. Anyway, my classes today, they did an SLO. They took their post-test, and several students did well. Some students didn't do too well, or they didn't meet their target growth. And so I just have to sit back and reflect, maybe even talk to them about maybe like what went wrong. My B-Day classes will take it tomorrow, but that's all we did today. So I'm going to finish up here, head home. Actually, I need to run to the store to pick up something, then go home. But I'm gonna pick up tomorrow morning during my 5th period so I can get ready for Wednesday. It is 6:28 p.m. Tuesday. I'm actually gonna get ready to head out, but I needed to make the cabbage juice indicator for the lab tomorrow. I guess I could have done it at home, but I figured let me just do it while I'm here at school, and everything pretty much is set out on the table. I just need to organize it, but I'm gonna do that tomorrow morning before I leave. My students, they just took the SLO like my 8A students did. Unfortunately, today I had several students out because they were taking this test to determine placement into dual credit English class next school year. And so I'm gonna have to track them down by Friday, because that's the due date for all SLOs, which stands for student learning objectives. I don't think I mentioned that before, but basically they took a pre-test at the beginning of the school year, and then they just took the same test this week. We call it the post-test, and it just is supposed to measure their growth over those certain objectives that I tested them on. Several students did really well, and then I had a few students that didn't meet objectives, but I'm just gonna have to reflect at some point when I have time to just look over the data. But with that said, I'm going to take care of some stuff here, and then I'm going to head home.
Oh, you watched it alone?
It is 5:17 p.m. Wednesday. School, I'm sitting here trying to decompress, and if I sound depressed or distraught, it's because I had my formal evaluation, and I'm sure like everything went well, but I personally feel like it didn't go well. And nobody told me, like I'm finding out that apparently today was supposed to be the end of the world for 1818, at least that's what my students are telling me. So it probably wasn't the best day to do a formal evaluation, but again, I'm just probably being harder on myself because of just expectations that I placed on myself in regard to the lab activity itself and what I know that I'm capable of, and the support that I know that I can give my students, and what I feel like I failed to deliver today. And it wasn't even just for the period that was in the observation, like my first period, and I'll talk a little more about this later because I don't want to have to stay here longer than I need to be. But my first period, like I felt it going downhill. And during advisory, I tried to last minute fix some things so that way that wouldn't occur. And it occurred again, and I guess I should talk about the activity. So I'm introducing acids and bases. So I have, and I said this a little bit earlier this week, but there are like 20 household items: vinegar, baking soda, bleach, shampoo, etc. And students have to generate or create a pH scale. And I've done this in years past. Every year that I taught chemistry before I left, where students would do this. And back then, even prior before this lab, we would do many labs. So by the time we got to a lab like this, students had that experience of perhaps like thinking and talking to one another. And I would never tell them like what an acid was, what a base was. I would have them do the activity before the content. Most of the time, students had an idea of maybe 1 or 2 substances. Oh yeah, lemon juice is an acid, it tastes sour. I learned that in 8th grade. And so when they use certain indicators and it changed the color, for example, cabbage juice, which is a universal indicator, a natural one, if lemon juice turned pink and then another substance turned pink or around that color. They're like, oh, it must be an acid because it's around this color. And they would do the same thing for a base. Oh, this is turning blue, this is like a greenish blue, so this must be like around a base. And that would help them generate their pH scale. I tried to do that this time. However, some of my students apparently didn't know what an acid or base were, or just even general properties were. Even some of my top students. And I made the mistake of assuming that at least they would know one thing. Because even when some of the students would say, yeah, lemon juice is an acid, they were sitting there looking like at all the test tubes and all the colors, and I would ask them, okay, so like if you had to organize this, you know, is there a way that you'd be able to do that? And they would just sit there and look. I don't know. And that was the response I'd get. Something is also definitely up because even some of my other students noticed it, because they had noticed some students that were not their normal selves, because during lunch some of them weren't here and they're like, hey, did you notice so-and-so? Why were they acting a little bit weird today? So, which unlike the first observation in the fall where my class was quiet, this time, while I don't mind them being loud, some of them just were not their normal selves behaviorally. And so with things falling apart during, or at least I felt like things were falling apart. So along with that, and then some of the students just being out of character, I just felt like, oh crap, this is not like the best observation. Not even the best observation, like the best lesson that I could possibly give. So yeah, so during my third period, I decided to flex some stuff. So prior to doing the activity for fourth period, I had students think, pair, share. Like, I want you to write at least 3 things that you know about acids and bases, and then they paired up, and then as a group, I gave them a sheet of paper, and they got together and they listed things out, and then they popcorn out as a group to the whole class, and then I wrote some stuff on the board to at least give them a frame of reference when they went back. That worked a little bit better, but again, some of the students, even though they had like, I could hear them in the groups telling me properties of acids and bases, when they still got back there, they struggled. So I need to take a hard look about things that I'm doing this year and try to remember things that I did successfully when I was in the classroom the first go around, and where my disconnect is, because again, it showed, like one of the labs a couple weeks ago. So again, it probably went better than I'm thinking. Yeah. So I'm gonna stop talking, I'm gonna grab my stuff, I'm gonna go home and get some sleep and come back energized tomorrow, more positive, because 6th and 7th period are not gonna get the best of me. I'm going to make sure that this lesson works by 6th and 7th period. It's 4:46 p.m. Thursday after school. So yesterday, after I cut off the camera and I started getting my stuff to leave, I realized I was probably being a little bit hard on myself, and I actually felt better vlogging about it, and just reflecting that I left her like in more upbeat, because I was like, you know what, the lesson wasn't really that bad. There were some things that you could have changed, and I realized that beyond the fact that I assumed my students should have, assuming that my students came in with prior knowledge on acids and bases and just sending them back there, and then realizing, oh, they don't, have this knowledge. The other mistake that I made was in the past, and I don't think I said this yesterday, instead of just using cabbage juice, I used 2 other indicators. So they had to build a pH scale with cabbage juice, then they had to do another one with phenolphthalein, then they had to do another one with bromothymol blue. So they had to do 3 different tests and create 3 different pH scales. And that was just way too much, and they struggled also just with the foundation on an acid and a base and the pH scale. And I've had observations before where like it wasn't going the way that I had planned, and I could tell students were struggling. So I just was like, okay, everybody stop, let's regroup, let's come back. And I probably should have did that yesterday for both my first and my second period, and even my fourth period class. Because even though I started off my fourth period with the think, pair, share, and having them after that get into groups, and then we popcorned out acids and bases, I still had them go back and do 3 different indicators. Whereas today, which went a lot better, again with the warm-up think, pair, share, they got to their groups and they wrote on a piece of paper, then they popcorned out, and then I wrote like acids and bases on the board. And then I sent them to the back, but they only used the cabbage juice this time. And I think just with the one indicator that allowed them some time, also with the reference. Some of the students came in, they had a little bit more knowledge, like some students were like proton donors, bases have hydroxide in them. And so that was up on the board for students to see. They can reference that during the actual lab activity. And I just walked around. Again, some of them still struggle when it came time to, like after they did all the tests and they had the various colors there, they're like, well, how do we put this together? And so I just told them to look, hey, on the table back here, is there at least one thing that you know for sure is an acid, or one thing that you know for sure is a base? Or if you need help, look up at the board. And so, you know, most of the students were like, oh, they saw the taste sour. Lemons are acids, so the lemon is pink, and so anything around like a pinkish color has to be an acid. So they were able to build it that way. And so I think that was very helpful. So again, lesson learned, not to, number one, try to do 3 different indicators. I don't know, maybe I was just being, yeah, I don't know what I was thinking, but so I know not to do that again. And then just with assuming to pre-assess my students, and that I should have known better before doing that. So that definitely is my fault. With that said, I'm actually looking forward to the feedback, because I know that I'm interested, first of all, kind of like what my appraiser noticed that I may have missed kind of as I was walking around doing things, and then maybe any feedback that the appraiser had for me during the actual observation to improve something like that in the future. I'm going to grab the rest of my stuff and I'm gonna head home. TGIF, it is 3:45. I'm gonna get ready to head out in a few, but I just wanted to vlog since I didn't do that today. First, I apologize to my 8A classes today for the disaster that was Wednesday. It wasn't really a disaster. As I said, I think yesterday I felt better about it, but it could have been a better lesson. And you know, sending them back into the lab, and I didn't pre-assess to see if they knew anything about acids and bases, my mistake. And then having them do 3 acid-base indicators, which in the past I've only done 1, again, another mistake. B-Day went well because I did the whole, and I talked about that yesterday, the whole pre-assessing thing activity, and then they just did 1 indicator, and that seemed to work well. So I should have stuck to what I knew versus trying to do something. It's okay to branch out, but I probably should have just did, hey, do 2 instead of 3. It's being a little bit overly ambitious with that idea. So I'm gonna actually switch gears a little bit, because Monday we're going to do a lab, a little bit of electrochem. So that's what my students did today. I had to introduce them to that, because a couple weeks ago, Home Depot and their partnership with Discovery Education contacted me, and they want me to do this particular activity, sponsor me. So I jumped at the chance, especially when I was told that they would be willing to send me a gift card to purchase the materials to do it with my students. So I'm excited about it. My students were excited about it when I told them. And so I need to go this weekend and purchase all the materials to get set up for the activity. So with that said, I am going to grab my stuff and I'm going to head out and enjoy the rest of my day and my weekend as well. Well, that's it. If there was anything about this video that you liked, then make sure to hit that like button, comment down below, and or share the video. If you haven't already done so, make sure to subscribe so that way you can bond with James. And if you're interested in checking out some of my other vlogs, you can do so by clicking on any of the links right here. As always, thanks for watching.